Peace, my peoples. This is Big E coming at you on behalf of the New Orleans Workers Group, and this is a talk about the COVID-19 crisis that's been created by capitalism and been prolonged by capitalism. And for example, like to get right into it, this current crisis has been prolonged by capitalism because there were COVID-19 tests that were being used worldwide months ago, but this capitalist government wanted to do a favor to its business partners and made sure the testing was done through certain companies so that they can maximize their profit, even as the debt toll was climbing daily, which is the basis of capitalism. As the many suffer, the few will profit. Now ask yourself, is this just a bad policy by a reactionary president? Or is this the way the whole system works and has been set up for centuries now? Currently, as millions suffer, there are people looking to capitalize off the misery being created. We live in a society where 1% of the population has more combined wealth than 99%. You have an oppressor class and an oppressed class. The capitalist right to private property is their morality and religion. They profit from private health care, but health care for them is just a capitalist commodity. Food is a capitalist commodity. They invest their capital to exploit the global working class here in the United States of America. This exploitation means that we workers only get paid for part of our day's work, while the capitalists take the lion's share for themselves. This current system is incapable of serving the needs of the vast majority of citizens of the world. The system of capitalism is what creates all of humanity's problems. The historical oppression of black people has never been recognized by this country, and no steps to alleviate black people to first-class citizenship is what has caused this problem to be more prevalent within the black community. It's a case of where, from the historical wrongs, black people have been set back so far. And when you talk about this for-profit commodity of healthcare, it's as you have people who can't afford to go to get routine checkups and are not, following some of the best, let's say, eating habits because of what you can afford. That's a matter of you're going to have detrimental health in comparison to the riches of, those in the society. And that's the one of the underlying inequalities that capitalism creates. Because basically, inequalities could be defined as in order to make money, first you have to take it from someone else. The rich cannot exist without the poor. Any way you look at it, there's never going to be equality under capitalism. Capitalism also creates waste and starvation. When resources are not evenly distributed, there's always going to be the wealthy who have an excess. And excess under capitalism is going to equate to inequality and scarcity. Again, I'm just going through some of the points and the things in which capitalism creates. Capitalism also creates the I got mine mentality, where you go from capitalism creating this greed and it's people driven into the I got mine mentality versus you're looking at life and society through a collective whole, and it's the fact of the matter that the propaganda that inundates us under capitalism. It's everywhere, on every billboard, on every TV program. You have someone somewhere telling you to buy something, to sell something. It's constant brainwashing and believing that everything has to be bought and sold for profit. That inundates people's way of thinking and their outlook and their approach on life because of the fact of the matter that they believe that everything has to be bought, sold, commodified, from health to food to soon air, everything. And that's the system that capitalism perpetuates. It's also a matter of where, when you talk about what capitalism creates, it creates a government that rules on behalf of the capitalist class. They have given one giant pharmaceutical company an exclusive patent to produce a COVID-19 treatment. It should have been shared with the world and produced widely without profit for all people. This is what Cuba has done with an antiviral effective treatment it developed in sending with doctors and support staff to countries all around the world. And it's something that Cuba has been doing for decades now, way beyond just this crisis. Every crisis, they send doctors out to the least of these, to the people who won't get them otherwise. Capitalism also creates a danger. Often companies will cut corners in health and safety restrictions because it costs them less to pay off the families of those who die in industrial accidents. Often staff are not properly trained in certain areas, or provisions have not been put in place to protect them from certain risks. Look at the Hard Rock Cafe collapse here in New Orleans, and the people currently working amongst the COVID-19 crisis. What's good for the environment and people is not what's good for these companies' bottom lines. So it doesn't matter to them in the long term that we'll all be dead, as long as in the short term they had the most money. So again, right now, the fact of the matter that they were denying so many people access to proper equipment for them to be able to function, for the workers at Walmart, for the workers on the docks, this prolonged and caused this crisis to grow and expand, as the workers who, it's a convenience for some people to be able to stay home and still get paid and, have some source of income. But there's people that still are forced to go to work right now, and they aren't given those proper equipments. And within the structure of our society, it isn't built in to help these people. It's only at crisis moments where the politicians or whatnot are scramble and to try to make something happen. And then this current thing, it bails out the banks, it bails out the hotel industry, it bails out the rich ruling class more so than it does everyday workers. So with that said, capitalism also creates no will of the people. Under capitalism, politicians only do what the wealthy want, because that's who funds their campaigns, aka their corporate puppet masters. 90% of the media consumed in the U.S. is run by 5 mega corporations, and these mega corporations also have military interests. So the military-industrial complex is tied in with the news corporations and what it is that we consume on a daily basis as American citizens. CEOs get paid massive salaries and award themselves huge bonuses. On top of that, while they pay their workers minimum wage, in some cases even lower than that. When you talk about under the table pay. The bosses don't do the work, they don't produce the goods we consume. Just in the capitalist system, they own the means of production. Thus, labor of the workers is exploited, while the owners and bosses accumulate wealth that could easily go to workers who earned it. And the workers don't have any say in how the unnecessary surplus or means of production is controlled. That is the opposite of what socialism would be, where we can reorganize society in a planned economy to work for the people instead of for profits. Right now, for example, you got where every week the Federal Reserve Bank which is the bank for the bankers, is lending $8 trillion of taxpayer money to the big banks. You know what I'm saying? They're basically just stealing it from us and giving it to these super duper banks, that hoard all this wealth. And only under socialism, achieved through revolution, will we return the means of production to the ownership of the workers as a whole, who can work together with international equality and, based on need, create a new society where healthcare and everything else is a priority. And so with that said, it's just a matter of, that we have all of the resources that we need on this earth for everybody to thrive. There's enough for everybody to have housing, to have food, to have clothing, to have recreation, to have work. There's enough for all. It's just that under this system, a select elite control the masses and all of the profits of it. And when it should be under socialism, we'll be able to redistribute that wealth to the masses of people and control the means of production and have a planned economy in which these sorts of crises can be, if not totally avoided, but can definitely be better handled, and we'll be more equipped for it as a whole. All right, much love and solidarity. Forward ever, backwards never.